I taught for a very long time. I taught music and filmmaking, worked as a musician all over the world. I'm a filmmaker. I work with the Cincinnati Reds. I do behind-the-scenes filmmaking stuff with them. So I have an odd life. I've always had an odd life, and I'm an odd person. I just have always been sort of different from others. The last 5 years I taught this class, and I loved it. It's the first time I ever fit. School was not really my thing so much. I wasn't a straight A student, and it wasn't totally my thing. This I get. So I just want a chance to tell you about it. If you're interested, that's great. Frankly, for some of you, this may be over your head, or maybe something you're not interested in. It's perfectly okay. And then you and I are going to fight at the end. Okay? I used to try to pick out the biggest kid, and then I'd fight him at the end because I'm tough. Who's the biggest kid in the school? CJ? Because, I mean, you know, that's just the way I... Well, yeah, so already some of you are like, okay, get through the presentation, we want to see the part, we want to see you do that. Yeah. My general technique is to wet my pants and run away, is generally the technique that I use. Okay, so CEOs creating entrepreneurial opportunities. There's some things about this class that I want you to know, but I want to kind of set you up with some things that I'm not crazy about the way we educate students. When you were in kindergarten, it was cool. And I've taught every grade K through 12. One thing I loved about kindergartners is that they're excited no matter what. So if you say to a group of kindergartners, who knows about nuclear physics? Every hand's like, oh, I know. And then you call on one of them, what's your first name? Call on Taylor, and Taylor starts doing this. Now, kindergarten kids are not put together tight, so they're leaking something out of somewhere most all the time. Sometimes it's air, sometimes it's fluid, but something's coming out of them somewhere most of the time. So you start talking to a kindergarten kid, they're going, cause and they're tugging and they're pulling. Everybody else is killing each other. Cause this, and you know what else? Cause I saw a puppy. And then all the other kids hear a word they know and they're like, oh, I'm in on this. I want in on the puppy thing. They're just excited. If you tell kindergarten kids, you know what we're going to do? We're going to rub gravel in our hair today. Some kid will go, oh, I was hoping we'd do that. I love doing that. By the time they get to your age, you go, okay, I'm going to hand out $100 bills. And you're like, so I got to walk all the way up there to get it. You know what I'm saying? In first grade, yeah, tell me I'm not lying to you. In first grade, you say to a group of kids, I got a problem, who can help me? This is how they raise their hand. So you go, I got a problem, who can help me? And they go, absolutely. Absolutely, I can do that. By the middle of second grade, we turned you into this. And I'm sorry about that. Our system turns you into this. By the middle of second grade, you became experts at pretending to understand. So you ask a group of second graders through high school kids, who's got a question about this? They all go. Because when you ask a question, then you get made fun of in one way or another. So you stop asking questions. It may or may not be of interest to you, but one time I was working in Japan as a musician, and there was a kid from China in the class. He had never heard a question asked at school, ever. He's like, why would you do that? Because you're either saying the teacher didn't do a good job of presenting or that you're stupid. Either way, why would you say something? He'd never heard a question asked, ever. The Japanese kids I worked with, kindergarten, all right? Kindergarten, they were on the buses and the trains late at night going to school, after school, to get ready for this big test they take in the 8th grade. Japanese kids, I was working with this show, it was July, they're all doing homework at 2 o'clock in the morning, or reading. I'm like, I don't understand, you're not even in school. They wanted to be ahead. So they thought it would be an insult to the teacher if the teacher had to tell them like what to do next, so they tried to get through the whole book before they started the class. Completely different cultures and things like that. But here in the United States, we turn you into, okay, I get the game. You're going to tell me what I have to do. I'm going to do that. You're going to give me some kind of a grade, and then that's where we go. So knowledge and information for too many of you is this thing that you need for an immediate purpose. I take a test, I take a quiz, and I'm done with it. And that's too bad, because you miss out on a lot of cool stuff when you do that. So what is CEO? Well, first of all, CEO is funded by investors, not by schools. So there are business investors in this class. That's how it's funded. It never meets in a school. It always meets in a business. Now sometimes it's a cool place like that, and sometimes it's just a workroom in a factory, but it never meets in a classroom, ever. There are kids from multiple school districts in most of our classes. That's a cool thing too, to meet kids from other schools and to become friends with them. Each class runs a class business. Now our class has done a whole bunch of things. One year, I'm a filmmaker as I said, one year it was a documentary I did about minor league baseball and they premiered it and whatever. Last year it was a half-day business conference. Kids do everything though. They do the planning, the contracting, the marketing, the selling, everything. They made 15 grand off of that last year, which was pretty cool. But I won't tell you that it all went smoothly and there were no hassles with anything, but it's their thing, they own it. Each kid starts their own business in the class, real businesses, viable businesses. That's a thing called the man closet. We put all your hunting stuff in there, and then it keeps, this may shock you, but I'm not really a hunter or a fisherman. I'm more like a male model, frankly. But this is where you put, that wasn't supposed to be funny, by the way. But you put your hunting stuff in there, it either keeps the smell in or the smell out. I don't understand hunting, whatever the point is. But the kid sold 8 of those at $450 at our annual trade show and has 2 distributors and a manufacturer interested, but he's playing baseball in college now and he has to put it on the back burner. But you're going to be impressed, I think, with some of the businesses you hear about. They write 2 or 3 business plans a year, not so much for the document, but for this process of getting a good idea, doing good research, asking good questions, projecting what might happen, and communicating it. I don't care what you do with your life, you're going to use that, or you better use that every day. Twice a year they sit down with bankers and investors and they present their plans. The thing about this is, it's not just for a grade or for a competition. This is a business they're going to run. It's a whole different thing. When you do a paper or something and you do it because you're getting a grade and you're just trying to figure out, what do I got to do to get this thing? Totally different deal if it's your business and it's going to be made or broken by the work that you do. Last year in our home class in Effingham, we visited 71 area businesses. When you visit 40 or 50 kinds of businesses, it'll change your life because you'll never look at anything the same way. You'll know how stuff works. It's a very cool thing. And we visited every conceivable size, shape, kind you just can't imagine. We had 140 guest speakers last year. We talk about, you name it. Stuff that's happened in the news, specific stuff about business, life philosophies. You're going to meet through this class. If you get into this class, you're going to meet 100 people who are successful professionals. That's a network that most adults don't have. And this is a blank screen because I just feel like you ought to see one. That's a joke. See, you're supposed to laugh at that. That's really funny. We had fun there for a second, didn't we? And we were really having fun for a second. But I want you to know that this is what our kids look like when they're in class. I love seeing students that look like this. I wish I had a desk to demonstrate for you the way too many students look in class, or do you know what I'm talking about? Heads down, whatever. Can I make fun of you for just a second without having you waiting in the parking lot for me? One thing I think is really hilarious about human beings in general, but people your age in particular, is it like if you're bored or disengaged with something, you have to show it. You can't just be disengaged, you got to show it. So you got to do this. You got to do that. Like, the people who are speaking to you always want to go, yeah, I get it. I get you're bored. You don't have to show me that. When you were in 8th grade and you were with your parents somewhere and you were doing this business, whatever. Do you really think that everybody else in the place thought, well, that poor kid, those adults are bothering that kid? Or do you think, oh, the kid's a jerk, good thing they don't stay in 8th grade forever? So next time you pull that with your parents, just know that everybody else in the room is looking at you like, what an idiot. They're not going, oh, that's a cool kid, too bad they have parents. And you'll get this one of these days. Anytime, some of you have already spoken in public or whatever, but it's just interesting to me that we have to show that we're not with it, that we can't just be not with it. Every kid gets a mentor from the business community. It's so cool when you have an idea to do something and you've got people you can go to see how that works, how you might do it. I love that part of it. And then we have a trade show at the end of the year where people come to kind of celebrate the businesses that got started and that stuff. You'd see kids like this, and I don't apologize for using the word kids because my students were my children. So when I talk about my kids, I mean they're like all right? So don't be offended by that. I could call you boys and girls. Don't you hate that one? Hello, boys and girls. I could do that. This kid wrote a book about her experience in the class. She goes and speaks with me sometimes. She's great. Now she has morphed it into this business called AT Avenue. Boys, do you all know what a trunk show is? Yeah. Boys are all like, I know, I just don't feel like telling you. I know. Don't worry about it, I know. Well, she does trunk shows, which means she has these clothes, and then she does sororities and professional women's groups, and then they buy these clothes. And girls, you might want to know that, like, these are her clothes and her models, but she doesn't, like, have that dress anymore. She buys like 5 of them, and then when they're sold, that's it. And she buys new stuff. She's doing really, really well with this business. Boys, I'm going to give you some hope for the future. With girls, you'll come to an age where you go, I don't know what to wear anymore. 10 years from now, some of you girls will have a kid or two, and you'll be going, I can't wear that stuff anymore, but I don't want to wear the polyester yet. And you go, I don't know what to wear. Guys, there's like 3 colors of pants. There's like 2 shades of khaki and a dark color. So you can wear most any shirt with it. So guys, it's easier for guys because you go, well, I don't know. You know what granimals are? I just wish they still had granimals for men. Because they just match up the 2 giraffes, and then you know this stuff goes together. Be all right. Her big challenge in life is trying to balance being a college student and continuing her business. So she's really having an interesting life. This girl had a photography business, does very well, does senior pictures and all kinds of stuff like that. This guy, I just want you to know a little bit about him. Can you tell by the look on his face that he's in trouble quite a bit? So school is not totally his thing. This was his business. He put logos in the mirrors of work trucks. It's not going to be a long-term business. But this kid is a thinker. I don't want you to think that you have to be the inventor of Facebook or the iPhone to be an entrepreneur. Because that's not true. Doing a car wash, that's an entrepreneur. So this guy, though, could be the iPhone guy. We had a guy come in last year, and he was talking about something called excess capacity, which means it's a manufacturing plant and they make more than they need. Do you know what private label manufacturing is? Well, like, who said yes? Did somebody actually say yes? I thought I heard it. Did you? Do you know what it is? I'm not saying anything. Well, I do, so I guess I'm smarter than you. Well, we had a guy who does, when you go, bam. You want to know something else I know that you don't know? I'm not telling you. See? You know it. You don't know it. Private label manufacturer, if you go into a grocery store and you see, like, that grocery store has their own soups or cake mixes or whatever, a lot of those private label things are made in the same factory. They just change the packaging. So this guy buys pretzels, laundry detergent, you name it, and then he repackages it and sells it. He was showing my students the little gel caps that you put in your dishwasher and then they dissolve. You fast forward a week. We're talking about product design. And I travel all the time. And hotel shampoo bottles are not very satisfactory. I don't know if you ever stay in a hotel and use one. Some you can't get the lid off, some they don't work, some you squeeze the shampoo out, it's like a snot bubble. As soon as you let go, it sucks it back into the bottle. You ever worked with little kids? You know what a snot bubble is? Like you look down the line and there's this balloon coming out of this kid's head. And then 2 seconds later you look and it's all gone. And then you shake their hand and you go, now I know where it went. When I first taught kindergarten kids, I would shake their hands as they left my room. I said to my wife, who's a kindergarten teacher, about every 4th one is wet. And she goes, well, don't look at the kid you're shaking, look like 4 kids behind you. And you'll go, that's why they're wet. So then I gave him the squirt of hand sanitizer instead of that. So, I don't know what I was telling you. So this kid, we were talking about these shampoo bottles. He goes, why wouldn't you just put shampoo in one of those gel caps? You crack it open, you use it, you throw it on the floor of the shower, and then it dissolves. That's a pretty good idea. Most of us adults would say, yeah, somebody ought to do something about that. But this kid finds out how they work. And then he measures temperatures. And then he finds a company in China that makes dissolvable packaging, which looks kind of like ketchup packets. And then he orders a sample or 2. And then he finds out if you say to a company in China, I'd like to have these as soon as I can, you get a little tiny box and a $102 UPS bill. The kids call me L. He's like, L, do I have to learn every freaking thing this way? I'm like, it's okay. If you do, you won't make that mistake again. He's also banned from eBay for life, by the way, because of another little misunderstanding. Well, then he found out that shampoo has too high a water content. It dissolves the packaging. But he's still working on it. He's still working on it. You can check it on your phone if you want to. These 2 boys started by converting vehicles to run on natural gas and propane. And now they've found out that the money is in tanks. So they started a company and they partnered with a couple of our class investors, and they are the North American distributor for these tanks. This young man right here, who was not going to go to college, has now paid for his college with his this company. He just didn't, he needed the right environment, an environment where he could explore and discover and learn and take responsibility for his own stuff. So now here's the CEO family that you guys are joining. There's going to be 15 classes in Minnesota, Illinois, and Indiana. I should have probably asked you if you could tell what states those were. I do. No question. That's Illinois, I think. So there's 15 classes. So you'll have a chance to interact with some students from other communities and other classes, which is great. But here's just some stuff I want you to know. It's the best thing I ever saw in 35 years in education. Because it's the thing that was built around why I became a teacher and what I think are the most important things. It's the life skills. It's not subject matter, it's life skills. It's your chance to own what you do, to be responsible for what you do. So what kind of kids flourish in this environment? Straight A students do fine, obviously, in this. Sometimes it's the kid that the teacher says, if they like it, they do great. If they don't like it, they don't do anything. Sometimes it's the kid that says, oh yeah, how about if I do a movie instead of a paper? It's that kid. Sometimes it's the student who we call the intelligent underachiever. They could do a lot more than they do, they just don't. So all kinds of those students fit into this. Now I'm happy to stick around for a while afterwards today and talk to you about specific questions you might have about how it works or what goes on in this. But I will just suffice it to say that as a teacher, it's the best thing I ever did. Best thing I ever was a part of. And it will change your life. It will absolutely change the trajectory of your life being involved in something like this, because it's like trying to describe Disney World to somebody who's sitting at a county fair. Because they kind of go, oh, it's ride, foods, people, I get this. You go, well, it is that, but it's a lot more than that. So I can really only give you a taste of what this is like, but this is the way you learn. You hear a lot of negative things about people your age. You know how to freaking learn. My wife doesn't want the new operating system on her phone because she knows how to use the old one. You know what I'm saying? You got parents like that. You guys, though, say, it's all a different version of the same thing. I can learn how to do that. You know how to learn. Education had better start going this way or you're going to make us irrelevant. We need to make you responsible for what you learn. We'll help you with the life skills you need. You take care of the content and stuff. So I'm happy to hang around and talk to any of you who have got questions about how the application process works or the day-to-day stuff of the class. I won't make you do that in front of everybody, but just know that I'm happy to be here to answer any of those questions, all right? I appreciate your time so much. It's nice to meet all of you, and then you and I are.